Howdy, y'all, and welcome to Showcase, the show where we go in-depth to make obvious comments and observations about quality TV. This week, we are discussing the 2015 Netflix series Daredevil.
It's a good show.
It's a very good show.
It's a great show. The end.
Before we get started, I'm going to tickle your brains with some important facts. Yes. Daredevil is one of 4 shows that Netflix is doing with Marvel, which is eventually going to culminate in the Defenders miniseries. Fact 1. Fact 2. Stephen DeKnight served as showrunner after Drew Goddard stepped down to do some other thing that I don't know about. Stephen previously worked on Buffy, Smallville, and Spartacus. And this one, this third fact, I'm sure Shanna's going to want to talk a lot about in a minute. But the series cinematography was done by Matthew Lloyd.
Oh, that guy's
who
good.
was director of photography for Robot and Frank and also for 2 episodes of Fargo.
Which 2 episodes?
I don't know.
Sorry.
If he knew, he would have told you.
So those are some tiny little detail facts to set the scene for someone to jump off and now tell us about the series.
I want to say real quick, on the front page of Reddit right now, Daredevil is now the highest rated show on Netflix streaming.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah,
I mean, honestly.
and it's well deserved.
Absolutely.
You know, I never read the comics. I saw the really crappy Ben Affleck movie a long time ago.
Yeah.
The less said about, the better.
And it follows Daredevil, obviously, a comic book hero who's deaf, but has really...
Blind. By deaf, you mean blind.
Oh, God.
That's amazing. So tell me more about this deaf superhero.
Blind.
Hold on.
Amazingly.
Yes.
He can see through anything.
And you know what? His superpower is that he can see, he can hear, he hears with his eyes. He can see the sound waves.
Oh, weird.
And so...
Let's rewind.
The only reason...
No, we're not rewinding. No, this is amazing.
The only reason why he has that red vision, because he has a red mask on all the time.
He has to wear the blindfold because he sees so well that it gives him a headache all the time.
He sees so well that he can see through people's clothes, and he feels very bashful, so he has to put a blindfold on for that.
Okay.
I think our Daredevil is better than the Netflix one.
All right, so blind but heightened hearing instead of being deaf, as I originally said. And, he has Daredevil vision, which is, kind of like a sonic vision.
He can use all of his senses to create a...
Wait, I'm saying vision again.
Oh, my...
Wait, no, Daredevil vision.
Yeah.
That's different than actual.
I have no idea what's happening now.
Okay. All right. Cool, anyway. All right, so when it first started off, I was kind of not necessarily sold on the show. It really won me over at the first fight scene. I remember thinking in that confessional booth, it's like he's Mr. Exposition, and he's just reading this long, clunky bit of a monologue.
Yeah.
Which I imagine was just ripped from a comic panel,
I could see that.
But the fight scenes are incredible, and it really got me back to loving the show, so...
They feel more realistic than a lot of the other shows on that you watch. It feels like he gets hurt so much,
right?
And it feels like
so good.
Okay, yeah, he may know martial arts, he has all these superpowers, but he's still a human being, and and it makes the goons feel like they are actually hired to do something other than be cannon fodder.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you say that. I 100% agree that. Unlike a lot of the Marvel comic book movies that have come out, you feel like at any moment, if something went wrong, he could be killed.
Right. Yeah.
And I read some interviews with DeKnight, the showrunner, and he cited The French Connection, Dog Day Afternoon, and Taxi Driver as some of his inspirations for the series.
Nice.
And I think you can definitely see that when you watch it.
Yeah, that grittiness.
It's totally more of a crime drama than it is a comic book
Mm-hmm.
TV series.
These first 2 episodes are actually directed by this guy, Phil Abraham. He directed
some
The
Breaking
Sopranos.
Bad, right?
He directed an episode of Breaking Bad. He won an Emmy for cinematography on Mad Men.
Nice.
And he actually pushed really hard, and his challenge to the stunt coordinator, his name was Philip Silvera, he wanted him to do that hallway scene in the second episode. He challenged them to come up with a one-shot fight scene.
That was so good. It really was reminiscent of Old Boy, which if you have not seen that,
they're
need to.
big inspirations for that were Old Boy and The Raid.
Yep.
Two just amazing martial arts sequences in those movies.
And it's cool because it's not a scene by scene recreation of that hallway fight from Old Boy.
It's
actually very different.
Very different,
but the color scheme is almost identical. And so you understand
the brutality of it.
Yes.
That they're like, and they used 8 different stunt doubles. There was 105 different movement beats. So they had to try it about 12 different times before they finally got it down. And Philip Silvera himself is actually, amongst his credits, he was the guy who did all the motion capture for Batman in the Arkham games.
Interesting.
Yep. So he's a pretty involved fella in the stunts scene. But yeah, like that fight and the fight in the apartment and out in the rain in the first episode.
The thing I love about all these fights is like they're so knocked down, drag out, like
they're very intense, lots of wide angles, so you have
no
lots
shaky
of context,
cam.
No shaky cam.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah.
There's just so much context and humanity given to everything. Or like in that hallway fight, he gets beat down a few times. He's down on the ground and they're wailing on him. So it's kind of like it's intense. There's a lot of like risk involved, and then he finally powers through and wins the day.
I mean, just to paint a picture of how brutal they make this action seem and how they really make you feel like the character's vulnerable, there are at least 2 episodes where the majority of the episode is focused on the main character,
Matt
Murdock.
Matt Murdock, healing up from a previous battle that almost killed him.
Right.
Yeah, they'll have like a really intense fight scene, and then the next episode, not so much.
Well,
which is
most of this episode, the second episode with this hallway fight.
Right.
He's met Claire Temple, and he's convalescing in her apartment with like broken ribs and stab wounds. And
then there's another episode, which is probably maybe around episode 8 or 9,
episode
where he has just been through a really horrific battle.
Episode 8.
And he's basically on his deathbed almost. He's just bedridden with horrible wound in his stomach. That's every time he exerts any kind of effort, it breaks the stitches and he starts bleeding out again.
I mean, how many times during this show were you like why do you keep doing this? Like that's one thing that misses from a lot of the...
Because he's got the devil
Oh,
inside.
I know. I understand that, but like how many times were you like, well, why do you keep doing this? It just seems like so like. Well, you should stop doing this. You should stop doing this. But then he comes back. It seems like every time I ask that question, they answered it for me. And like this is the reason why. And if like that's why like you kind of you always root for him because like you understand why he would stop doing this or why he would think about stopping to do this. But then he continues to do it. So then you have to root for him because like he's done so much already. Why like
yeah. I think the first episode does a really good job establishing his motivation, which is pretty selfish in all honesty. Like starts out with him in that confession booth saying he's got this devil inside of him. And then the next fight scene, you see some pretty awesome action choreography, but at the end he's just like wailing on this dude, just like punching him beyond the point where he's incapacitated. And so you really see that part of him come out. Like there is something inside of him that propels him to do this stuff that's not pure or honest. Or
one thing I can't remember, does he kill people?
No.
No.
No, I only do that because like so many of these superheroes now are just I don't kill people.
But he doesn't. It doesn't become like with the Arrow, where it's a constant thing he's talking about all the time in every episode. I promised my friend that I wouldn't kill anybody. It's just understood that he doesn't kill people.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's maybe 1 or 2 scenes in the series where he has like a hardcore debate about whether he should kill one particular person.
Right.
And sometimes doesn't it come back to bite him like a few times where the person like comes back and fights him again? I thought that was this.
He kills Nobu pretty good.
Yeah, Nobu is definitely dead. But that
discussion he has with the priest, where like he has that like really intense debate with himself. Like, if I know this guy is going to hurt people and he's going to keep hurting people, and I can stop him by killing him, but I can't stop him any other way.
Yeah,
you know, it puts a lot of weight into it with the fact that other than like, oh, Batman doesn't kill people, so that's why. But it's like this is actually something he doesn't want to kill people.
He's
because
Catholic.
Because killing people is wrong.
Yeah.
But he also feels like maybe in this case, maybe that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And so he actually struggles with that decision, which is more
and
than
the
you
priest
usually
doesn't
see.
make it any easier on him,
Right.
which I really enjoy. He's like, no, you shouldn't be doing this. Like, he's the conscience of Daredevil. So whenever he needs his conscience renewed, he goes and talks to him. One thing I really liked...
Oh,
no. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's actually really essential that he doesn't kill people, and at
Right.
least 2 points where he's confronted by potential critics of everything he's done.
Mm-hmm.
Where I think it's one time with the journalist, was that Ben Urich?
Ben Urich.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ben Urich kind of meets up with him and is questioning his motivations and what he's done in the city. And he has to defend himself and say, I've never killed anybody. I've just tried to stop people from doing bad things.
Right.
And then there's another time, and this is a spoiler cast, obviously, so I'm just going to come out and say it.
Right.
When Foggy Nelson has discovered that he's Daredevil, and he's just torn apart, can't believe that he's kept the secret from him.
Mm-hmm.
And the only consolation he's able to find eventually is that he hasn't killed anybody, and he's been trying to do the right thing.
Right.
So his moral compass has not just been like window dressing for the character, just to like fill time and have like pointless drama.
Right.
It's been really essential. So
Yeah.
I don't mind it so much in this.
Well-
You
case.
brought up too with Foggy discovering that he's Daredevil, which is another thing that I really liked how they handled shows like Arrow. It's like every time somebody else finds out that Oliver Queen is Arrow, they're like, "You never told me. You kept this secret from me,
Yeah.
you jerk."
Now I'm
like,
gonna
oh, you-
now I'm gonna join your team.
There was one case where his friend was really upset. The guy that, what is his name? Tommy Merlin. When Tommy Merlin finds out, he's pretty upset about it.
Yeah. But at that point, he'd been like murdering everybody.
That's true.
So
yeah.
he was killing lots and lots of people.
Mhm.
But in this case, like Foggy is angry that he's a vigilante because they're lawyers.
Right.
It's like you're subverting everything we fought for and everything we believe in. It's like our whole lives have been built around due process and taking criminals to the court and getting them
Yeah.
sent to jail, and you're just out on the street beating people up and breaking the law.
And on
Which I'm
top-
like, that's an actual compelling, good reason for someone to object to a superhero.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, didn't Daredevil also, or what's his name again?
Matt Murdock.
Matt Murdock. Didn't he? Sorry, I can't remember names. I'm bad with names. Didn't he convince Foggy not to take a high-paying, high-end lawyer job?
Yes.
So they could fight for the little guy.
Right.
And
Yep.
then he's going out and fighting with his bare hands. So
Right.
they did such a good job with their relationship. Like just watching those two, like before, especially when they were just lawyer buddies, and like that by itself was excellently done. Which I think a lot of superhero shows always forget to do is when they're not a superhero, make them interesting and fun
Yes.
to watch.
Yes.
And that, and like the wisecracks, and those two feel like they're like they don't feel like actors at a certain point. They feel like this is how friends talk to each
Right.
other, and they do such a good job with that. Where like Arrow's like, no one cares what he does when he is Oliver Queen. Like
Well, he just goes around.
He feels
and
bad
has-
about himself.
He has like fundraising events where people get shot by snipers.
yeah, and he gets and it's just boring. But sometimes in Daredevil, I had more fun watching him not be Daredevil and try to like be a
Yeah.
dude.
I think that's a really good point. That's one of the notes I made for myself was that the characters function as human beings.
Right.
They're not just props for the plot,
Yeah.
which is I think a huge problem that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has, where they're just on this plane all the time going from mission to
Right.
mission. And it's like, what do they do? What do they do besides go on missions?
Sky complains about Sky things.
Right. But with this, it's like, okay, he's got his apartment and they're friends. And they go out drinking and they look after people in their community, and they're really well-rounded human beings that do more than one thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I really like that with them looking out for their community. Mrs. Cardenas, the way that
Yes.
they can like, oh, we're
Yeah.
going to go and like my dad ran a hardware store. I can do some basic stuff. We're going to actually do something,
Yeah.
physically to help you get back on your feet.
Yep.
It's like just a good character touch.
And to her, and to Miss Cardenas, is that what her name was? To her, like they're heroes in their own way, and they don't have to have a mask on. But then you're also following like an actual, well, quote unquote superhero. Like I don't know if he can qualify quite as a superhero by like Daredevil by himself, because I mean, basically just beats people up. He doesn't have
Well,
any
he
super.
beats up bad guys.
He doesn't really have a superpower
He
besides
kind of
superpowers.
does. Yeah.
But either way, like, but then his friends are heroes in a different way to that one lady. That's what's kind of cool.
Right.
It makes you really like them and want to keep following them.
Yeah, his sidekicks.
Yeah.
And the fact that they show him and Karen is her name, out drinking and having a good time. Like, they're not just props for Daredevil to use.
Yeah.
They're their own well-developed characters.
Well, and they talked too about like she was scared about all the people that are out to hurt her, and he was like pointing at all these people in the bar. They're like, oh no, that guy, we've helped him with his legal troubles. He's getting his life back together. That guy works at the dry cleaner. That guy organizes the toy drive.
Yeah.
So it's like they have this human connection with their community.
For sure.
In Daredevil also himself isn't just a generic boring slab of a superhero. He has very funny dialogue.
Right, he's not just a boring millionaire kid who's always complaining about some random boring crap.
Right.
Yeah. In his wisecracking, like he doesn't really wisecrack much in
He's pretty...
in the
he's driven, he cares about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
He's got goals besides just stopping Fisk.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But he doesn't wisecrack that much when he puts on like the suit and everything. He's pretty serious. He's pretty serious through most of that. I don't think he was fighting and wisecracking at all.
Right.
He wasn't like.
But once that
There
mask,
was some exactly.
yeah, once that mask comes off, he's loose. Like he's loose. He feels like a human being because he's making funny jokes and all that stuff, and that just makes you like him more.
Yeah.
I would have to say if there's one complaint I had about the show, and this is a very minor complaint, but it is something that I picked up on. It was, think back to, is it episode 3 where they represent that guy who is accused of murder?
Mr. Healy?
Yes. When they represent that guy, and there's this whole lawyer scene where he's talking to the jury and saying that if you can't prove that he did this, you can't find him guilty. Mm-hmm. That scene was fantastic.
Right.
And I really wish there were more scenes of them being lawyers and doing lawyer stuff.
Absolutely. Although, I mean, the show is pretty packed, so it would be very difficult for them to find the space for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that was a great... I have some notes on that whole episode, which another fantastic fight scene in that episode.
Oh, so good.
Broken bones and exposed
yeah, when he
arms
just
and-
in the bowling alley and he just bashes them in the head with the
that
bowling
opener
ball.
was amazing.
Yeah.
Lots of great openers for this
And then
series.
just the kind of that conflict too with Matt not wanting to take Fisk's money to represent this guy because he can smell something fishy, but then decides, wait, we should take their money so that I can get inside of this organization and get a look at what's going on.
And it puts Foggy like, whoa, what are we doing?
Right.
What?
And then he gets the guy off. He successfully gets the jury to let him go, and then the dude ends up killing himself because he finds out that, or Daredevil gets him to
that
give
was
up
an
Fisk's
intense
name.
scene too.
That
The
was-
way that he killed himself was
I really like that concept too
Incredible.
of how Fisk was hiding in plain sight by just
Right.
not letting anyone use his
Right,
name
he's just-
at all.
Doesn't exist.
yeah. So he
Which
just-
was weird though, because like that guy just had some random murder spike built into his fence. So
No, I think it was just
whatever.
some metal
Yeah, it
shard.
was just
That
like-
it was
I
like
I thought it was
city-
rebar. I thought it was like a rebar.
It's just Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah, it's
just
just
run down.
some rundown piece of shit fence or something like that.
I mean, I could probably find anything to stick my head through right now if I really wanted to.
I would say Hell's Kitchen is a character in the show just as much
Yeah,
as any of
absolutely.
the.
Well, and they've talked to me about how the events of the Avengers movie where everything in New York got destroyed has led to a big economic boom, and Hell's Kitchen's being rebuilt and gentrified and
Yes.
and coming up in the world, which is actually true in real life.
Very
Hell's
true,
Kitchen
yes.
is a very nice place.
The
now.
Clinton District, I think it's called.
It's
Is that in New York?
yeah.
It is. I actually wrote down where Hell's Kitchen got its name from.
Oh yeah.
Gordon
It
Ramsay.
was a name that was borrowed from a Davy Crockett description of another Irish slum in New York when he said, "In part of my country, when you meet an Irishman, you find a first-rate gentleman, but these are the worst savages. They are too mean to swab Hell's Kitchen."
Interesting. But yeah, so that's kind of where they are geographically. Right.
That's a fool's lantern fact right there.
That third episode is also the first time we meet Ben Urich and kind of see his like old, on the street, like big important stories, newspaper man, personality, running up against his editor who wants a fluff piece that's going to sell papers. And they're fighting against news bloggers and kids sitting at home typing up stories on Google. And Ben wants to do hard journalism. And he talks him into doing that story about, we've got a new subway line. What color do people want the subway line to be?
Yeah.
And there was this great little momentary visual gag, too, later on. You see the thing's been published, and they did a poll on what color they want the subway to be. And it's just a 4-way tie between, like, red, yellow,
Great.
blue, and green.
That's nice.
Probably just four
That's
different
amazing.
people.
Well, and I wanted to discuss a little bit about the fight scene that you talked about where the guy jams his head on the spike. in that scene, they illustrate Daredevil vision in an interesting way, and they do that with every single fight scene, is they slow it down and they let you hear they amplify the sound. So, like, you'll hear that pipe scraping on the pavement, and then it gets back up to speed, and you see how he reacts to it. And
they did that in the first episode when they were fighting out in the rain.
Yeah.
And kind of illustrating it, too. Like, you see the rain droplets.
The chains and, yeah. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The best example I personally liked about Daredevil vision was the lie detector, kind of. You know, they can hear the heart rate go up and down.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. It gave, like, it made you kind of think for a little while the way they wrote it. It's like, are they lying? Are they not? Then all of a sudden, like, they do Daredevil vision, hearing, like, more near the end of the conversation. So then you can kind of, that gives it away so you don't have to sit there guessing. Guessing, but I like that.
I kind of wish they'd never explicitly showed.
Yeah.
In that episode where they showed his like world on fire, impressionistic painting. It's like I liked the explanation. I thought was really good. You know, how he senses like air temperature and pressure changes and all that kind of non-sensing that he pieces together. But I just wish they hadn't shown it because it's like, why it doesn't need to be a visual thing. He's blind.
That's true.
So he wouldn't necessarily.
In fact, I should really stop saying Daredevil vision. It should
all.
just be heightened senses.
That's true. I mean, he wouldn't be giving it a translation to how we should be able to see it when it's not. It's not sight.
Right.
It's not sight.
You can't depict what a sonar bat sees.
Right.
So,
and I thought kind of with his blindness, like in his day-to-day life, I thought they went much more thoroughly with how that affects him than other shows, like other blind people you see on TV where they're just like, oh, I'm blind. Like, you know, he's got his cane, he's got like his cell phone says everyone's name, or he's got his talking alarm clock that says what time it is, because like his phone has just 2 giant buttons on it because it's a smartphone and he can't hit a small button. He needs a big button, or he needs somebody else to read the text messages off the phone for him, because even with all of his enhanced senses, he can't read a touchscreen.
And that attention to detail was really good.
Did it kind of bother anybody else when sometimes he looked like he paid a little too much attention to like multiple people in a room, like talking to him?
No.
Like there's times when like
I don't even know what you mean.
Like he'd be like somebody would come into the room and start talking to him, and then he'd turn like face directly at them without like.
He can hear where they're.
I understand that, but he's looking like directly at him, and then like somebody else will start talking, and he'll turn, and it didn't really feel like he was blind at that moment.
Good. I think he was good at doing the eyes that didn't like focus on the person he was talking to. Like he pointed himself in their direction, but his eyes never met their eyes, and he didn't really focus on their faces.
Right. There's a friend of mine from college who would do that. He was blind, and he would make a point to just face towards people who were talking, because he knew it made people feel more comfortable.
Like,
if you're looking
otherwise, they're going to think, oh, does he know I'm talking to him?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to shoot you down.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's just like
that's just Stitch.
Yeah. Ponytails.
Yeah. Episode 4, one of my favorite little fight scenes, the garage.
Yes.
And also, before that, when he's running to find, what's her name, the nurse?
Claire Temple.
He's running, like, as fast as he can, and he gets there, and he's, like, so out of breath. I love that part, because it's like, yes, you would be out of breath if you're not invincible.
Right.
And I love the way they show stealth in this show. Like, in a lot of action movies and shows, they let you follow the protagonist. So they're leaning behind a box, looking at this group of people, and you kind of get the intensity that way. On this show, they show you, like, the villains from their perspective.
Right.
Somebody will be pulled violently off screen. You'll hear a noise here and there out of the view of other people, and it's really effective.
I feel like the Christopher Nolan Batmans, did they kind of do that? Maybe they did a little bit more before they introduced Batman.
They did a little bit of both.
That with Batman Begins and like, where are you? I'm right here.
Yeah.
And then always doing that, Commissioner Gordon looking away, and then Batman's gone.
Right.
Yeah.
Every time. He's just always planning. Every time he's talking to Gordon, he's always planning out how he's going to get out of the room.
Right. I'd get paranoid. Like, is Batman still here? Like, I'm like
he's just hiding behind the table.
I'm like brushing,
like in the Honda episode of Community.
What a
brushing
great
my
car.
Brushing my teeth, and Batman's behind you. And he's like, "What are you doing today?" Nothing. Commissioning.
Yes.
Yeah, so this the 4th episode too is where we first kind of get to know Anatoly and Vladimir a little bit better.
Yes.
The Russian brothers that run that portion of the Fisk crime syndicate. And you know, the Wesley's getting a little mad at them because they're not producing as much as they should because Daredevil's giving him grief. He's tracking him down.
Mm-hmm.
And we find out, Wesley's like, Daredevil knows Fisk's name. He's
Wesley's such a great
Right.
character, too.
Wesley's probably my favorite
it's like
character
that very
from
like
the villain side.
kind of pretentious and
Just
a little
very-
bit prissy, but like very proper
Uh-huh.
and willing to do whatever.
But he's
it
totally
takes.
like in control of the
Right,
situation at all
absolutely.
times.
Right.
He's not
Yeah.
just
He's like a butler that will destroy you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so that kind of kicks off the whole chain of events in this episode with them.
Yeah.
They go to the guy that Daredevil threw off the roof a couple episodes ago,
Mm-hmm.
wake him up just long enough to tell him where Claire lives, and then he dies.
Mm-hmm.
They go kidnap Claire, and Wilson Fisk at the same time is trying to set up a date with,
Oh, yeah.
with
Vanessa.
Vanessa, the art dealer.
Do we know Fisk's name yet? Like,
yes.
Yes.
yeah,
we do definitely, yes.
Yeah,
But-
like the third episode is when
Mm-hmm.
he finds his name. And I just thought like their whole relationship is
It's
really charming and like
really great.
like he's this imposing, powerful guy, but he's so
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable and like nervous and fidgety around her.
Yeah. It really makes you empathetic for Fisk.
Right,
While
like
he's-
it shows that he's not just a
Yeah.
big ruthless villain. He's a man with feelings and baggage.
feelings that are too intense on certain subjects
Right.
and probably not sensible. But
right, but he has this ability to open up to someone who's weirdly able to relate to him and
She's-
empathize
yeah.
with his kind of awful history.
it does a lot of good for him because it humanizes the villain, which a lot of shows don't do. He's not just like, yeah, he's insane, yes, but he is still human with feelings and stuff like that. He's not
Right.
just always angry all the time. I want to kill everybody all the time.
And I think that was why the
I don't
origin
even-
story, the flashback that they had for Wilson Fisk, I thought was extremely effective
yeah, that was
in creating a character
great.
because it shows him first as vulnerable before they bring in the like sociopathic murderous tendencies.
Right.
He's this vulnerable kid that
Was
has a kind of
bullied and-
abusive dad
Yeah.
and is bullied, and his dad forces him to kind of learn how to use violence as a tool.
Right.
I really liked that
Well, I think-
episode.
And even too, he's not even insane because
Right.
it's why any villain is effective for their counterpart hero because they're the same but different in some key aspect. Because like Fisk and Daredevil both want something better for the city. They think the system can't do it, so they're going outside of the system, and taking their own means to make the city better. But they're doing it in two radically different ways.
Yeah.
And like I think Fisk is very effectively demonstrating that he honestly does want the city to become a better place.
Yeah.
He just wants it to become a richer, fancier
Gentrified
right?
place, yeah.
With less crime and more fancy
Mm-hmm.
buildings.
He wants to kill the lower class people, while Daredevil.
I don't even think he wants to kill the lower
He
class
just wants
people.
to get rid of
just,
their buildings.
he
He,
just
wants
wants
them
rebuild.
gone. He
he
wants
just
them
wants to
gone.
rebuild the city into something
Right.
nicer.
It's not like
Yeah.
the undertaking from
Right, and that was part of what I thought was so good because like you remember those scenes from the first season of Arrow where it's like, well, the undertaking is in progress. It's like, oh yes, we're just gonna murder everyone in this part of the city,
Yeah.
and it's not something so cartoonish like that. It's just I'm gonna get the mob to let me into their operations so I know where they live. And then I'm going to blow up all of the Russian mafia, and then I'm going to work on cornering the Japanese Yakuza, and I'm going to take them out, and then he's just planning to like slowly weed all of these
and
criminal
I'm going to
elements
force
out.
rent-controlled apartments to be vacated,
Right.
even though old women rely on that place.
Right, which did show a lot of his, definitely evil
He's
methods.
big
too.
picture
Right.
good, I guess.
Yes.
That's what he thinks. He's
And
Right.
justify all measures according to him.
Right.
yeah.
He has good intentions. Just his way of getting there is not good.
Right. Which is then we have that moment later on when we find out that Mrs. Cardenas was mugged and murdered outside of her apartment.
Yep.
And then like that's so affecting because
Yeah.
for our heroes, like they're on the ground level. So like these little people matter to them.
Yeah.
Whereas to
And it's
Fisk,
a great motivator for Daredevil
right.
for sure.
Whereas to Fisk though, she's just
Some person.
She's just a little person who's in his way.
Yeah, and in fact only used for motivation for Daredevil to get him to that
Right.
warehouse on the water. One thing I wanted to say, jumping back a little bit, to episode 4. I really love that moment when that Russian guy comes into the restaurant during their date. And then, he calls his assistant, take him for a ride or whatever.
Right.
It's clearly something that they've done before with how nonchalant Wesley is about it and how in on it he is. But they just go to this abandoned part of town, and he screams at him, "You embarrassed me in front of her!" Like,
starts beating his head in with the car door.
I counted 22 times. He slams the car
to the
door.
point where his head fell off, didn't it?
Yes,
he closed it on the head.
It's pretty fantastic.
He completely decapitates him.
That was great.
And like Wesley just casually
just like the blood sprays on his cheek,
steps
and he's
out the other door, and
I'm out.
It's
it's the first showcase of his strength and also his weaknesses.
Right.
So like we know his weaknesses is his mom, and Vanessa, and the city. And that's where he becomes insane.
Basically, he's a violent, powerful ogre of a man, and also simultaneously an innocent, helpless child.
Right. Well, it's like you see it in his reflection in the mirror where he sees himself as a child covered in his father's blood, because that's like, that to him is where he stopped. Mm-hmm. Got that Arrested Development kind of thing going on, where he's just still a kid inside.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that they actually developed him as a character before he even did anything that, like, anything violent. Like, I think before that, he was just like a dude trying to ask her out on a date. Obviously, he was some kind of big shot. He was probably going to be the villain at that point. But someone like me who hasn't read the comics or really know anything about Daredevil, first I was like, I wonder where they're going with this, because he just seems like a dude just trying, like a socially, like an awkward dude who wants to go on a date with this woman who has obviously been on a lot of dates with a lot of rich guys in the past, and just slowly like getting you to kind of feel his soft side, and then all of a sudden he turns into this monster and just starts wrecking this Russian dude.
That was great.
Yeah.
And it was just so violent. When it turned so violent so fast, it like the violence.
He
was
just
shocking.
gets yanked out of the car. It was great. They're good at shocking you with violence in this show. So, episode 5, the fight scene in that one was really creative too. Like, that's what I really love is the fight scenes. I had to rewatch all of them this morning. I just like fast forwarded and watched them all. This one not necessarily starts, but you see this blind guy in the back of a taxi, and you witness an entire action sequence.
Oh yeah,
through
that was
the windows of
fantastic.
the taxi, like that, and the guy's singing a Chinese pop song. I think is what it was.
It's an old Chinese love song.
Nice.
Called like a Kangding love song about a blacksmith son falling in love with the butcher's daughter under the moon.
Mm-hmm. And so you see it all through the rear window. The guy who's singing gets shot in the head, so it really amps up the intensity of it, and it's just amazing. Like, and I like the way that guns are just useless against Daredevil because they're so noisy,
and they just provide all of this ammunition for him to just beat you in the head with the ammunition.
Like he undoes the clip and throws the clip in someone's face, and that's awesome. And then he throws the gun at the back of somebody's head. But that click of reloading the gun. Sometimes with superheroes, I'm like, really, a gun won't work against them, but with him, with his heightened hearing, I believe it. And he does these awesome flips to avoid bullets from automatic weapons.
The only retort on that is like, you don't think these guys already have a look. I guess like when you have a gun, you kind of shake it. It does kind of make a clicking sound.
And he's Daredevil. He can hear heartbeats.
Yeah.
So he can hear the slightest rustle of a metal on metal.
Yeah. It's not just hearing. It's also like he can smell things, and he can just... Like, if he can tell what kind of milk was used in ice cream from, like, 10 feet away, he can tell if there's bullets in the gun or not.
That sounds like a terrible superpower. Can you imagine the terrible things you'd smell and all that?
That's what his power is.
Yeah.
I want to see the Daredevil, like, the other side of things, where he's just walking through and just somebody farted, and he's like, oh, I know that he had McDonald's for lunch. I don't like that I know that.
Oh boy, that would be terrible.
So before do you have any more things
for episode 5? Sorry, I have a lot of stuff, I guess.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, episode 5. This is where he starts to win over Vanessa, and they sit and watch that explosion, and it looks very reminiscent of Fight Club. Them just staring across. I thought that was a cool reference.
I like his line there. He's like, "Those men no longer infect this city," and she's just like, "Good."
Yeah, she's like
just
totally down for it.
she's on board Team Fisk all the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's amazing how.
Yeah, that was actually kind of jarring for me. It's like, wow,
Right.
she's
Like you think
fine with this. She's known him for a week.
Now I kind of not want to know the backstory of her.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get some of that
Yeah.
next season.
Right. And then the next episode after that one was kind of a lot more slower paced. It was like hiding from the cops the whole time.
Yeah.
Manages to get
That was,
cornered by the one non-corrupt cop in town. Mm-hmm. And him and Vladimir end up cornered in the sewers, running from Fisk's SWAT teams. And Fisk is trying to blame the explosions on Daredevil. Mm-hmm. So he's got to now try and clear his name on top of everything else. Which is it was a much slower episode. It didn't have any like really standout fights or big action
It didn't have
pieces.
anything huge that I have written down. But, they need that, like a moment to take a breath.
Right.
And then episode 7 is when his mentor comes into
Right,
town from
Stick.
Japan, Stick. And the way that they introduce him is really cool. Mm-hmm. With that, just, you don't know the context, you don't know what's going on, but
Right.
that Japanese guy is running down the stairs to get to the elevator. You see the light of the elevator come down very slowly and open, and it's that guy and chops the dude's hand off.
Right.
It's great. And chops his head off later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really
I thought
good.
Lauren Malvo was going to get out of the elevator.
That one would have been pretty good. Fargo's now a DC entity.
And then Mrs. Cardenas talking to Karen about El Abogado Guapo.
Hold on.
It's not DC.
Oh, Marvel.
Tisk tisk.
It's all the same to me.
That's a Fool's Lantern fact for you.
Yeah.
Daredevil is not DC, it's Marvel.
Yeah, they had this great scene in that episode too with Karen and Mrs. Cardenas, where she's kind of like, "Oh, you're in love with Foggy, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "What? No."
Yeah.
And this is an episode after she had Foggy touch her face. So
Yeah. That was an interesting moment.
Then she leaves.
That was a really awkward moment
Yeah.
where you're trying to figure out who she actually
Is she
likes.
like imagining?
Like, is she wishing that he
right?
was?
Does she just want Foggy to touch her face, or does she want to imagine Matt is touching her
Yeah.
face?
Yeah.
It was uncomfortable and weird. But then you had in this episode as well with Stick, kind of seeing some backstory of his training and their mentorship and a little more understanding of how his powers work and that there might be other people with similar powers.
Yeah.
And then the Black Sky that they introduced this kid with some sort of incredibly dangerous powers, who's maybe an Inhuman. They don't really go into any detail.
Just never.
They don't say
revealed.
anything about him, but it seems like he's an Inhuman. That would make sense.
And it would line up with all the other Marvel stuff right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Stick ends up killing the kid off camera.
And that
after-
drives Matt like off the wall.
Right.
Yeah.
They fight. He
Ruin
kicks him
Matt
out.
Murdock's apartment in the process of the fight.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it ends then with Stick going back to his boss, who is a character from the comics called Stone, who's this like big, ethereal, otherworldly kind of guy.
Does that mean they're going to break Matt Murdock's back?
Maybe.
Sticks
Old
and
and
stones. Break your bones.
Stick and Stone. Oh. I just got
I didn't get that either.
But Stone asks, will he be ready when the doors open?
I know, the very
Which is
cryptic. What does this
some
mean?
cryptic extra stuff going on in Daredevil, man.
Maybe season 2 stuff. They never.
Do you think it'll be
mention
season
it
2 or
again.
will it be one of the other 3 shows?
I'm not sure.
Maybe.
A lot of this, like Madame Gao and Stick and Stone's more of an Iron Fist villain, so I think a lot of that's going to come up in Iron Fist.
Nice.
But
yeah, after this is episode 8. Is that the Fisk episode?
Yes, that's where this
You get
his
to learn about
father's
Fisk.
stuff.
One of my favorite episodes is episode 9, where it opens mid-fight scene. This is where we see the weakness of Daredevil, and we see his motivation for creating the
They
Daredevil
Tarantino
costume.
it a little bit in this episode.
Right.
Yeah, they all screw around with the timeline. It's where Miss Cardenas is killed, and that motivates him to find Fisk even more.
Yeah.
He busts heads until he finds this warehouse on the water.
Is this fight with Nobu just
Nobu
absolutely
is,
brutal?
oh my gosh. I was like, how could he possibly get out of this? It was insane. But yeah, he set him on fire. It was good.
Which is pretty much till the end of this series. From this fight, he's still like recovering from this fight with Nobu.
After that, he doesn't have, a hugely intense. Well, He does with the guy who makes his armor, but not a crazy fight like this again.
I wonder if that's when the director switched.
Yeah, when he fights that guy that makes his armor, you see him like shudder in pain,
right?
As you hear like a tearing sound,
right?
As you understand that because they've shown it previously, you understand that his stitches are breaking.
Right.
What's up?
I'm looking at you while I'm talking.
His stitches.
Yeah.
Oh goodness gracious!
So yeah, he does.
Was that on purpose?
Yeah.
Even worse.
He does meet this guy that Fisk uses to make his armored suits, and he's like, "Can you make me a little something, buddy?" And he's like, "Only if you'll help save
Nadine." No, what was it? What was it?
His
I
wife
forget,
or
but
name?
he
Or
that
They
character.
don't explain her
They
relationship
never show
at
you
all.
what it is. I think it's probably a pet of some kind because he's
Yeah.
kind of simple. He's
He's
not
a
very-
simple-minded guy. You shouldn't be in here. First it sounds menacing, and then he's crying at the end.
Yes.
right.
He might be like autistic or something because he is so good at doing one thing, which is apparently making this armor, but he can't.
I'm not going to diagnose him.
No,
He's a
From,
character, but he's
Either-
something.
Either way, he agrees to make Daredevil a suit of proper Daredevil armor
yeah,
if he'll, get Fisk off of his back.
yeah.
Which then over the next couple of episodes, then
And well,
finally
he does not promise to get Fisk off of his back. He promises to try.
right.
So the next episode, there's one highlight that I want to say about this one. When Fisk shows up to the reporter's apartment, that scene is done so well. Like
Yeah.
if you look at it,
Because you know someone's about
they're
to
very
die.
they're very slowly zooming in on both Fisk's face and the reporter's face to build up that intensity.
Right.
Well, previously they'd been doing the cutaway between him and...
Oh, that was in episode...
Well, we also had before this, I guess.
No, that was this episode you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
He tried to get the story published, and he couldn't get it published, so he
and
decides
then
to do it.
Karen brought Ben to see Fisk's mom. They
Yeah.
found her hospital. They took her up there. Wesley finds out and takes Karen to intimidate her. Karen ends up killing Wesley.
Which, yes, Karen. I was so excited
Just
about
shoots
that.
him like 8 times in the chest.
Yeah.
The panic shooting, yeah.
You think I would put a loaded gun down
Bang,
within
bang,
rage?
bang.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was pretty dumb, dude. He was just realizing it in that moment.
I think.
But he was so good at I believed
I liked
him
how
for a second.
he was so calm about it, just like even after she shot him the first time. It's just like he knows he's in a bad situation, but he's not going to break. He's going to keep his
Yeah.
control.
Yeah. He tries his best to just get up from the table casually,
Right.
and then, nope.
It was just then like Fisk's like rage and fear as he's like he doesn't know what happened to Wesley and like that's his
Yeah.
only friend in the world.
Yeah.
So like his reactions were so human for that, which
Yeah.
is all like just the best thing that they've done with Fisk. Because in the comics, he's always been just a huge cartoon, big fat guy.
Yeah.
So it's like making him so human in this has been great.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
It's what sets this whole series apart is that you feel for the villain so much. I can't think of a different show where I feel for the villain.
Well,
Right,
and
So-
even when he's in that apartment with
Ben.
Ben, he says, "You brought my mom into it," and he's
Right.
so like passionate about, "That's my mother. You shouldn't have talked to her. You
Yeah.
shouldn't have brought her into this," and that's what really set him off.
Which made me mad. He killed Urich in that scene, which made me so mad because Ben Urich is such a big character
Oh,
in like
really?
the comic books. Like he's the guy who's like always on the newspaper perspective of things, like getting like ground level like human interactions, and it's kind of annoying that they got rid of that so early because like especially that the stuff he was getting ready to do to start a blog and be and
Yeah, I was
that's
so
like,
excited.
that's what he does in the
They
comic
pulled a
books. He
Game of
starts
Thrones on me.
Frontline and
I was like, "This is how it's going to be," and then
Right.
it instantly got squashed.
That's the best, though.
When your brain starts making the plot before.
right. It's like nope.
Nope, not happening.
Also, maybe
They'll have to bring another character in or something. And when this happened,
I think they might have his editor take up that
they-
role.
he better, because that guy, he fucked him over.
Yeah.
He should, if he doesn't feel bad when he's at that funeral and realize that it's like kind of his fault
right.
that Ben's dead, then he's a horrible human being.
He looks the editor looks a lot like the comic book version of Ben Urich.
Really?
So I don't if they go with that and have him try to pick up Ben's torch and carry it on. But like you saw his guilt when they arrested the secretary that had been.
Well,
feeding
and that
the
was a good
information.
little reversal for us because the way he's treating Ben Urich, you think,
Right.
oh, he's the one on the paper that's been
Right.
bought by Kingpin, and then you see them go to some random chick
Yep.
in the back.
Well, that's why he was fired, right? Because I don't think you mentioned this. He was fired because he said that there's somebody in the paper that that is leaking out information or something, or is corrupt in some way. I can't remember.
I think it was just his insistence on doing the story
Yeah, but why did somebody get arrested?
because they were dirty. And, okay, now we're jumping ahead, but in episode 13, there's a guy that is only there so that the accountant has insurance on his life, where if he doesn't hear from that accountant every 24 hours, he's going to leak everything he knows. And he knows all the people that Fisk has paid
It's the
off.
guy that killed off the other crooked cop so that
Yeah,
he
his
couldn't
name
testify.
is Carl, I think. Yeah, Carl.
Yeah.
And that's what makes Fisk seem so omnipotent, is the fact that like all these people you wouldn't suspect to be like corrupt, or usually it's like, oh, they're paying him off. They're paying him off. No, this is blackmail, and these people really don't want to
Well,
do.
it's a combination of things. He's paying them off, and also nobody knows who anyone else is. So
Right.
if
Well,
you don't
there's,
take
like-
the money, he might kill you.
Like those two cops that worked at the police station, like cops do.
Yeah.
And they murdered the drug dealer in the police station.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because the guy said Wilson Fisk's name. So it's like he's got people like that are so high up and so unafraid of the consequences. Cause,
So it's a combination. It's work for me and you'll prosper. Don't work for me and you're dead.
Yeah.
So it's just the total package.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, should we talk about how the show ends, or do you have anything else?
Oh, yeah, the ending is fine.
yeah, this kind of the last few episodes are sort of building up to this big confrontation finally where Kingpin gets the lid blown off. He gets arrested.
There's this great montage of the FBI rolling up everywhere and arresting cops and
Right.
arresting journalists and arresting I don't know, basically just
Everybody
dozens of
involved
people.
that they've exposed.
Yep.
Yeah, and
And-
I love it the way that it starts is like the accountant thinks that he has Fisk in a corner. Like,
Right.
I'm taking half your money, I'm leaving because this will happen if you do. But Kingpin's like, you hurt Vanessa, and kills
Right.
him anyway.
Yeah.
Like, there's no appealing to reason with
Right.
Kingpin
He
Well,
just-
or Fisk.
he'll burn everything just to protect people he cares about.
Yeah.
Well, that was the guy with the glass who died who was shot by the woman with the gun. What's his
Wesley?
name? Wesley. That's what Wesley was there for. He was the reason to kind of
He was the buffer.
to kind of insulate Fisk
Yes.
from the stuff. Now that Fisk is doing it all himself, it's all just raw, irrational rage. at
Yeah,
that
that's
point.
true.
So
I
he
didn't think
he
about
does that moment too with Vanessa where he's like, I need you to go.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be here for this. You need to go, and I've got a plan.
Yeah.
Which then leads to him having this little monologue in the police wagon as they're hauling him
Oh
off.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
saying like a
About the
parable
story.
or
He's
something.
always believed that he was the good Samaritan in the
Mm-hmm.
parable of the Samaritan. But it turns out I'm actually the guy who beat him up on the side of the road originally.
Yeah.
And he kills the cops.
He's the malintent.
Right.
He's
I think that's what he
embracing
says.
that evilness inside of him, which he hasn't done before.
Right.
He's always used
Which
excuses.
I thought was a little bit obvious. Like it happened a little too fast for him to just be like, you know what? I'm a bad guy.
Yeah.
It's like it felt like he should have struggled with that a little bit more. But
Yeah, I think
we've got a limited runtime.
they were starting to show it with the way all of his other operations were breaking down as soon as
Right.
he was exposed and having to deal with it firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
But they could have had, I don't know, some more dialogue, some more Mr. Exposition about it.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But
This is the episode with the costume reveal.
it is. This is the first time
which
we
was
see-
very controversial, and I had no idea. But apparently, comic book fans were not impressed with his costume.
Who cares about comic
And
book
it-
fans?
Whoa!
Prevented a lot of
Aw.
them from actually
We
watching.
might have
the
one
series.
fan that listens.
Yeah.
Well, one fan.
Not
on
anymore.
here.
I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
I think that it needs some
Good
reworking. I
riddance.
thought it was a little overly detailed. It's kind of like the Michael Bay Transformers thing, where there's so much detail that you can't really see the whole thing so well.
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
a more simple design would have been better, but it was still fine. It was still cool
Yeah.
to see him in costume finally, as Daredevil.
And I read a little interview with the creator, and what he was intending with that costume is he liked the look of the rivets. He wanted it to look like something that was made street level.
Right.
Not like a latex,
I'll tell you what
superhero
isn't
costume.
cool is the fact that Netflix has a screenshot of the costume right on the.
That was
Screenshot
weird.
spoiler.
Yeah, it was just like instantly. It's like, okay,
Well, and there was, I know,
Spoiled by the box art?
The first day it came out or so, the poster was Matt Murdock with the glasses on, and like a couple days in, it changed to that.
Well, it was
Daredevil.
leaked, I think, before the series even came out, so they just
Yeah.
were like, whatever.
it was still one of those things. Like they could have done that a lot better.
I agree.
mean, if you have it right there, so all I'm thinking is like, okay, so when are they going to bring the
Right.
costume
When
in?
am I going to see that
Yeah.
from the poster?
And
Yeah,
then they
agreed.
show it's like, oh, that's literally like they don't show it for very long, right? It's like,
No, it's just like the last 10 minutes or so.
Yeah.
yeah. So it would have been this kind of cool reveal, kind of ruined by Netflix and
Yeah.
some intern probably.
Right. So the cool thing I thought about this whole sequence in the final episode was the way it's cut in and it's playing opera music,
Oh, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
classic opera music, and it starts to feel like very mafia-esque, like the mafia is being taken down from the inside style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Builds
There
up the sense of the kingpin that
Right.
he is becoming,
Right.
Yeah.
which culminates with with two armored cars pulling out in front of him and a bunch of guys with machine guns stepping out to kill everyone and
Yeah.
save him.
Right.
Yeah, it was great.
Makes me wonder, like how, like, so, like all of his like arms, his branches are pretty much done right now, right? Like his,
Yeah,
like
I mean,
the Russians are dead. Didn't something happen to the Japanese?
Yeah, the Japanese guy, I mean, they killed Nobu.
Oh
so
yeah,
they're-
like, explosion.
The Chinese matriarch left,
yeah,
basically.
Madame
She
Gao.
was like, I'm
she's
out.
Some sort of weird otherworldly thing, apparently. She left.
Oh man, that factory were they making drugs or something? With all
Yeah,
the
they're
making
blind,
heroin.
with all the blind people, like that was like unsettling in a very like different way than I'm used to in like a show like this. And so now, like, what does he have control over? It seems like he's pretty much been taken down.
Well, he's in
just
jail
free.
now.
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
Staring at
So-
that wall.
So
Because he gets rescued, but Daredevil catches him, and they have a brutal fight, and he finally arrests him, and the one non-crooked cop is the one who shows up
Right.
first and lets him get away.
And then Vanessa is hustled away in the helicopter without him.
yeah.
So I wonder if Vanessa's going to be the one in the next season to carry out a bunch of.
That's we were wondering that, like, who's going to be the villain? Probably eventually Fisk,
Right.
but I imagine for the first half of the season at least, it's going to be someone else.
yeah.
There's some really interesting Daredevil villains when I was looking at the Wikipedia. I hope it's Leapfrog, a frog-themed supervillain.
No,
Or the guy
Or
with the long
Man
legs.
Bull.
They had I can't remember, the guy with the like stilt legs.
Oh,
You
yeah,
actually-
Stiltman, I think
you
is
saw
what it's called.
Stiltman's costume in the dude's shop, Mr. Potter's shop.
Oh, nice.
So,
There's also Jester, a clown-like villain.
oh boy.
There's lots of good stuff for them to choose from.
Was
I
Daredevil
wouldn't be-
just Marvel's Batman at the time?
No, that was Iron Man. He was just
Just
Daredevil.
an original concept. Yeah.
Yep.
One thing I wanted to mention, I was on the subreddit for the Daredevil series.
The Stilt Man. I'm showing a picture of Stilt Man.
Nice.
for all the
Does he have just
listeners,
like an armor?
We'll put that in the show notes.
Nice. That's pretty awesome.
That's
He looks
exactly
pretty
what
goofy.
I really want to see this guy in the show. Go on.
But yeah, anywho, a post by Hoondon, I can't really pronounce it, on the Daredevil subreddit says, "Did Daredevil really win?" So, like,
No,
Fisk was only partway through his plan. So now it's just demolished. Like, I mean, it almost would have been better to have Fisk have done the damage and then built his crazy new good apartments or whatever he was going to do. And now also all the organized crime is gone, so that's going to be a vacuum for just gang-related violence, probably just disorganized crime all over the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which will probably lead to more and more interesting villains. Because if it's just Fisk the whole time, I think
exactly. It's going to become an incubator for supervillains now.
it's kind of like
Right.
in Arrow when after what was the big earthquake thing that happened? What was that called?
The Undertaking.
After the Undertaking happened, it's basically like the big villain succeeded, but now all of a sudden we have this vacuum of new villains coming in to kind of be like minor villains to the overall plot. So the superhero didn't win, but it's a new set of problems happening.
Hopefully they continue along with the tone that they've set, though.
Yeah.
And kind of... there weren't any super villains, quote-unquote, in this season. Maybe other than Nobu, who's not even much of a supervillain. He's just kind of a martial arts weapons expert.
Right.
So maybe season 2 we'll get a chance to explore the lawyer aspect more, because there's a lot of disenfranchised people now who need representation.
Right.
And it's going to... there's going to be gang violence. He's going to be fighting people, trying to bring justice to the streets.
Law and Order, Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah.
I'd watch it.
I would watch it.
I would watch it.
I need him to bust some heads in there somewhere. Sorry.
So, anything else about the synopsis? What happened in this series?
So, like, personally, I think, like, overall, it's an excellent, probably the best TV superhero show that I think I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything better. I did think it started to slow down near the end, and I'm glad they kind of ended it when it did. I feel like there's just certain parts where it was starting to feel like they were running out of ideas, and maybe it's because they were switching directors or something. Like you mentioned.
There was a different director on every episode.
Well, like who switched that you mentioned in the news? You mentioned it. Oh, who's like
no, the showrunner switched before they even started.
Oh, okay.
So that's not what happened.
I just feel like there's a certain point where it felt like it slowed down a lot, and it wasn't just like, oh well, he's recovering. It just felt like kind of got a little, I don't know, slower to me at a certain point. Not like to the point where I'm like a grinding halt, but
I think it did slow down in a good way. It felt like they were focusing more on the institutional corruption of the city and trying to unravel how they could possibly overcome something so ingrained.
So
or even in those last couple episodes, a big part of it too was kind of like after Foggy finds out he's Daredevil and feels so betrayed, and like, how are we ever going to get past this?
And he was really torn apart by that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he can't have if he had just like an awesome new fight scene. I mean, he did towards the end, I guess, with Kingpin, but
I think maybe a lot of
he couldn't do as much.
If anything, it was just the calm before the storm.
Yeah, I mean, they spent a lot of time on that, like kind of them rebuilding their just regular human relationship amongst those three characters.
And maybe that's part of the reason why I felt it slowed down a little bit for me was because of like, because I like the biggest part I like about it was the relationship between
Foggy and
Mark Murdock.
Matt
Murdock. I'll get it eventually, but their relation. Then when that breaks up, and then all of a sudden like the funny little quips that they have with each other and all that is gone, and then the fighting stops, and then it like a lot of like the big, huge, like the biggest draws for me are gone. It's still excellent, but my favorite parts of it were kind of not there, and that's probably why it
I
died
liked
down.
the last few episodes. It really showed how Kingpin's world was crumbling around him.
Yeah.
I think that's what they really focused on. Is like all his allies are gone.
Yeah.
Like, what does he do now?
It's not necessarily that they shouldn't have been there. It's just more of a, to me, like the tone changed so much in the dark area, which, like I mentioned, I don't think
there was like a consistent, precise tone to any episode. Like, I mean, the second episode was a big criminal trial.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that you can expect it to be a certain thing from start to finish.
Yeah, it wasn't formulaic in any way.
The fact that it changes is what makes it good.
Yeah.
It wasn't like
stale.
ABC.
It's not like the Arrow.
Yeah.
It's not like the Arrow where he has to go out every episode and shoot arrows at criminals.
Right.
But not
Every
kill them.
episode is unique.
There can be an episode that's a bottle episode with him talking to Foggy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned, that's a me thing. That I identified that was good, and then they did tell a very good story within that. It's just I like their quips with each other.
Yeah,
it was funny.
I would say this is probably the best thing from the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far.
Avengers 1
on television or
Total?
just in general.
Avengers 1.
Nah, I wouldn't say it
Only
beats
thing I would
Daredevil.
say
I would say
is
it's
close.
different. Very different. Guardians of the Galaxy was really
Oh,
good.
Guardians of the
yeah.
Galaxy is the only thing I would put up there that might be better.
I think they're just different. It's like apples
It's
and
not.
oranges.
It's not fair to compare them
It's
because
not.
it had 13 hours to
you
make its plot.
You can't get the same character development in a movie. That's I just can't
And also,
compare the two.
Guardians of the Galaxy was a very lighthearted.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like a very lighthearted.
Same with Avengers.
It did prove that Marvel can do the dark stuff better than DC.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. Everyone's always been like, oh man, DC's so good at the dark stuff, and Marvel's really good at the light, goofy stuff. And Marvel's like, oh, okay,
No,
fine.
Marvel's good at everything, and DC's terrible.
It's amazing what happens when you can just throw money at stuff.
No, DC's not terrible. Zack Snyder's terrible.
Zack Snyder's awful.
Yeah. Ugh.
Now, do you think so? The closest comparison I can kind of put to this. So this is kind of like to me, like the golden child of like the Marvel universe right now, as far as like, okay, let me rephrase this.
Everything from Marvel's a golden child right now.
Okay, so let me rephrase this.
Make a flop.
For some reason, I keep drawing a line toward this, and then the Dark Knight trilogy. I don't know why.
I could see that. Batman Begins is very focused on the origin, and this series is like that expanded.
They're both they're very focused on like mob violence.
It's like a crime thriller more than anything.
Right.
Yeah, like
if the Dark Knight trilogy had been more about the Marcone family and less about
Bruce Banner,
less about the Joker.
Oh,
there is no Bruce Banner in the Dark Knight trilogy.
am I an idiot?
Yes.
Yes, sweet.
That is a fool's lantern fact right there.
Bruce Banner. Sorry. That's
All right,
the
so
Hulk.
Is Bruce
we're
Banner
at an hour.
Superman?
We're
It's
at
the
an hour.
Hulk.
A Hulk.
We're at
Did
an
you
hour.
really say Superman? Sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm bad with names, and I'm getting tired. The energy drink's wearing off.
Good. So now we're at an hour. I think we've done a pretty good job of talking about this series. So let's just get everyone to say their one line about how they feel about the series. Tank?
I think this is some of the best character development, some of the best cinematography that Marvel's done. I mean, they took the time to do 13 hours on one character that they would normally shove into one origin story movie. So I'm glad. I kind of hope they start going to this format more. I think it works really good.
Absolutely.
Pretty much what Tank said. Like I mentioned, it does kind of, like, I feel like if you like the lighter tone of it, okay, the little bit of light tone that there is at the beginning, that does go away near the end, but still excellent all around.
Yes.
Yeah. I would say this show to me is like if HBO did a comic book TV series. It's just got that very mature feeling to it, that very planned out, meticulous, extreme attention to detail that you get from something like an HBO production.
Which feels like a lot of the Netflix stuff.
Right.
That.
I feel like I could watch this right along with True Detective, and it would be a perfect tonal complement. Mm-hmm. Shannon?
I loved it. There were multiple storylines going throughout the series, but it never got unwieldy, which I think is a problem with a lot of series, is you start not caring because there's too much to care about.
Game of Thrones.
Maybe. But yeah. Very good to see Daredevil battle with whether or not he can make a difference or whether or not he cares. And also just incredible action sequences. So I highly recommend it.
It's good to see realistic without seeing a lot of brooding.
Yep. So it sounds like it's unanimous. We all think that everyone needs to go watch the show right now. Mm-hmm. And with that, that's the end of our showcase.
Hooray!
Yay!
Are we ever going to do a showcase where we just watch a season of something we actually don't like?
How would we know?
Well,
we don't. We're gonna the whole point.
Showcase.
The whole point of showcase is to watch shows that are like critically revered. Yeah. But we don't know that we're gonna like them. So there could be a show that people say is amazing that we all hate.
I can't force.
Okay, let's watch a season of Big Bang Theory.
Do critics say that's amazing?
I'm sure they do.
Not critically revered.
Yeah.
It's hard enough to watch an entire season.
It's hard enough to watch 5 minutes of an episode.
Yeah. So now the music's fading over our discussions. And
Mad Max Fury Road, everybody.
Yay.
So good.
Yay.
So good.
That's not a TV show. Shut up.
Talk about it. I feel like
So
we're seeing a
good.
revival of action.
Yeah, between this and Daredevil,
Hey Shannon, what's Daredevil's power?
Is that real?
Our showcase theme, the song Booga Blue by the U.S. Army Blues, was brought to you by the Creative Commons Attribution License.